So for more on this, let's bring in Michael Geoghegan. He's a political analyst joining us from BC. Hello, Michael. Good to talk to you again, and thanks for joining us on CTV News Channel.
Thanks for having me.
Michael, let's talk about the latest announcements. Andrew Scheer, of course, once again speaking of balancing the budget, and on the campaign trail, he's also spoken of the ambitious energy corridor. Jagmeet Singh speaking of pumping in $30 million into BC ferry system. Trudeau taking a day off on the campaign trail. But he spoke of about planting 2 billion trees to neutralize the carbon effects. Now, we understand energy and climate are big where this election campaign is concerned. But what do you make of these announcements that keep coming in?
Well, I think, first of all, in terms of the Conservative announcement, a lot of people have been advocating this for a number of years. If we want to have energy sovereignty as a nation, then we do need something like an energy corridor, because right now, we import oil by tanker to the East Coast to provide, for the Irving refineries there. So the other thing is if we're going to switch from mostly, hydrocarbon-powered vehicles to electric-powered vehicles, we're going to need an upgrading in our electrical grid system, which also means east-to-west transmission lines. So I think, both pre and post the carbon industrial era, we're going to need this kind of corridor. And then in terms of the NDP leader talking about the BC ferries, well, it's been a sore point for British Columbians for a long time that, ferry service between Vancouver Island and the mainland, they've had to pay full freight, whereas in other jurisdictions, other ferry services have always been subsidized by the provincial and or federal governments.
Michael, but how feasible really is this idea? We already know that having a pipeline is a very contentious issue. We've seen how it's been met with so many cases already. I'm talking about, of course, the Trans Mountain Pipeline. To have this energy corridor run across coast to coast, we will need to take everybody on board. Do you see that really happen?
Well, I think what will happen is that they would try to get as many groups, individuals, First Nations, et cetera, on board as possible that were impacted by this corridor. And then if they came across a situation where you have a group or whatever that was intransigent, they would probably use national security reasons in order to complete the transmission line. And that might put them into an interesting conflict, for example, with the province of Quebec, because a lot of Quebec politicians have been very opposed to an energy corridor.
That's right. OK, let's also speak about where they stand at this given point of time. We've seen the kind of, events taking place where the climate change, for example, a strike was concerned as of yesterday. But there is really no front runner in this race up until now, Michael, where these elections are concerned. Why do you think that is happening?
I think Canadians are really undecided. They have misgivings about all the federal parties and all the federal party leaders. There's pluses and minuses. So there hasn't clearly emerged someone who's where there's a consensus around, that's the person we want to be prime minister. That's the person we want to lead us for the next 4 years. So it's a real cliffhanger of an election between the Conservatives and the Liberals, with them all being within the margin of error in poll after poll after poll. That's, of course, pleasing both the NDP and Greens because they have visions of holding the balance of power. And so, for the Conservatives, it's more of a challenge because they've got a lot of votes or a lot of ridings in the West that they win by large margins. So they have to make sure that they do well enough overall that they can actually cobble together a majority government, because that's unlikely they're going to be able to form a partnership, unlike the Liberals with the Greens and the NDP.
Michael, help us understand. What do you think is required? How can the tides really change for any one of these leaders so that we could probably have, if we do, a majority government? What needs to be done?
Well, certainly the Liberals can't afford to have another stumble like they had with the whole blackface, brownface incident and Trudeau. So I think that certainly helped the Conservatives edge past the Liberals. But in terms of getting into clear majority territory, I think it's going to rely on one or the other leader badly stumbling. And we've already had a major stumble from Trudeau. So it'll be interesting to see what happens in the rest of this election. But right now, this is going down to the wire.
All right, we'll have to leave it at that. I appreciate your insights. Michael Geoghegan, political analyst. Appreciate you joining us on CTV News Channel.
Thank you.